Welcome to another episode of Green Thumb Gardening Secrets. Today we're going to talk about how to plant onions from seed. Let's get going. We're going to be talking about long day variety onions. For day neutral and for short day varieties, it's a totally different story. We're not going to address them today. First question most people ask is, when do I plant? With long day variety onions, you want to get them in the ground as soon as possible. They're deciding to shut down as soon as the days start getting shorter after the summer solstice. So getting them in the ground early is crucial to getting big bulbs. As soon as you can work your ground, as soon as you can get in your ground, if you've worked it in the fall, get your onions in.
This is mid-March to mid-April for most places long day onions are grown. But your situation may vary, so check with your local extension agent and or your neighbors to find out when is the exact date you can get in your soil. Plant your onions 8 to 10 weeks before this date. This means mid-January to mid-February for most places.
Next, what are you going to plant them in? Typically, you might plant seedlings in containers maybe this size, but it doesn't work that great for onions. You could go ahead and put several in there, several in each one, but it's not the best situation. You could also plant them in trays like this, but again, you maybe put 2 or 3, maybe even 4 in each one, but it's not the best solution. You could even plant them in trays this big, but that's way too big. We instead use containers, and just anything you can find. This is an old spinach container, and you want about this size. This will plant about 150 onions.
Once you've picked a container that's the right size for you, it's time to fill it with your favorite planting mix. I'll leave a link to our favorite recipe in the description. Pick out any big chunks that you find. Once you've filled the container with planting mix, just gently, very gently, pack it down in there. You just don't want any air pockets. You don't want to smush it super tight. You just don't want any air pockets in it.
So once we have our soil kind of loosely packed into there, it's time to put seeds in. And unlike onions in the garden, they can be very close together while they're getting started as seedlings. As tight as a ½ inch, I guess a centimeter and a quarter. You probably don't want to go much tighter than that, but ½ inch, it works great. Because we do this in the same containers every year, instead of having to measure that out and poke them out and come up with something, we just made a little grid we can put on that container and easily mark them out. We just repoke the holes and we have our planting holes. You obviously wouldn't need to do that, but it makes it easier if you're using the same container.
Whether or not you use a template, it's time to make holes for your seeds.
It gives you something to...
The other advantage of using some sort of template is it helps keep the soil compacted, instead of if you just poke it like this, it like falls all over the place and it's kind of a pain. But you wouldn't need the template. It just makes it a little bit easier. You could alternately, instead of having holes marked out, you could just place your seeds in particular spots and then cover over with the same amount of soil as the depth that we push these holes in.
Onion seeds are tiny. Placing them in exact locations can be difficult and tedious. There are a couple methods that seem to work pretty well. You can use a tweezers, and when using the tweezers method, it's especially nice to have someone there helping show you where your previous hole was, where you've already planted, because as soon as you look away, you lose track of it. Or you can use an old seed packet, like a funnel. Using this method, it's much less necessary to have the person pointing out the spot for you, but it's still nice to have them there to help poke seeds down in the hole a little bit and corral any that should go astray. There are plenty of commercially available handheld seeders that are built on a similar concept.
After you have them in, like just placed, you'll notice that they're just typically like these here, right on top, and you'll want to poke them down a little bit. And your eventual planting depth is going to be a 1/4 inch to a ½ inch deep. We keep a little stick, we call it our planting stick, that actually has 1/4 inch, ½ inch, and then inch marks on it, so it's easy for us to keep in the garden and know how deep are we planting as we're putting stuff in. Now we're just going to add a little soil on top. We poke those down just under 1/4 inch, so we're going to add just under 1/4 inch of soil. You saw I had a big chunk in there. If you have any big chunks, just take those out.
And just very gently pack it.
All right.
Okay.
Planted.
You want to spray? So the reason why we use a spray instead of actually like open and pour from a container is so that you don't create a divot in the soil and then all of that water just kind of pans out and it'll move all of your seeds and it'll create like a blowout of sorts.
You can see right now where the water is in the soil. It's about halfway down. And the first time we water so that it's evenly moist all the way down. And then it takes less water to just keep up with that as the days go. So that's it. They're all planted. They're ready to go. We'll now put this under lights for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and then it'll be out in a cold frame for the last 2-3 weeks. Hope you enjoyed this video on planting onions from seed. Till next time, stay open to growing. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and check out our website. We use Twitter as a garden calendar and reminder, and fill Instagram with all the beautiful garden photos Jen takes. On the website, we have much more information on starting your own seedlings, including our favorite seed starting mix, oodles of information on soil preparation, how to know if you're getting plenty of sunlight and the right amount of water, tips on companion planting, and much, much more.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool little shot because now I can see down the paper funnel, and when you're dropping them in there, she's tapping them in.